Hey everybody, welcome back. And I know you're saying, Tori, why are you making this video at night? We want to see your beautiful, beautiful face. And this lighting ain't cutting it. Well, it's because I want to tell you a story about, normally I'd like to tell stories that help, people, maybe save them from pain. But every now and again, you just tell a story to wag your own tail or, for whatever reason. And this is kind of one of those stories. And quite frankly, I think the video that I'm going to put up in the corner over here is going to look way cooler if I have the backdrop of the beautiful darkness, the beautiful night sky. So this story basically is my long history with video games, and that started when I was second house I lived in, I was 5 years old, 6 years old maybe, and I got an Atari. And my parents gave me like a dime or a quarter to do my chores, to clean my room, etc., etc. And they said when I saved up half of the money, they would cover the other half. That was the deal. I still remember that from when I was a 5-year-old child. And so I did, and I saved up $22, and my parents chipped in the other $22, and my first video system was a Atari. The very first game I played or had was Pong. I still remember my parents' friends coming over and saying, it's funny the things you remember. My parents' friends said, "I'm playing Pong on the television," and my parents' friends say, "Wow, it's amazing what they're doing with technology these days." And I had all kinds of other great games like, what was it? Berserk, I think, was one that I liked. I think that was what it was, with the robots. And then there was, what was it, Safari? Is that the one where the guy jumped? He actually jumped and grabbed a rope and jumped over like sand traps and stuff. That was revolutionary at the time, believe it or not. Frogger? You remember where you were the first time you saw Frogger? After the Atari, I remember where I was the first time I saw a Nintendo. A friend of a friend's house, and he had Duck Hunt, and I was astounded. I was, what is this? And then after that came Super Nintendo, I believe it was. And that's what this most of the story is about, is Super Nintendo. Yes, I am the Super Nintendo Rainbow Road champion of the world, as far as I know. And it's quite possible it's been beaten by then. I have a feeling it has. But I guarantee you, for a long time, at least 10 years, I was the Rainbow Road champion of the world. And it was a Super Nintendo game where you would race against each other, and there was one board in particular that had no walls, and if you fell off, a helicopter would come pick you up and set you back down. And after the first lap, you would lose a lot of time, obviously, when it happened, so you didn't want to do that, so you wanted to stay on course. And also, after the first lap, a bunch of obstacles fell down in your way, and if they hit you, they would, I don't remember if they squashed you or if they knocked you off the edge, but either way, you had to avoid all the obstacles. Every other board was like a regular racetrack. It had walls, you couldn't fall off. This was an imaginary board, with like free space where like you got knocked off the road, you fell into the abyss, and it took time to come back or whatever. Well, that particular game, that Super Nintendo, Super Mario Kart, a couple of my best friends and I, that was our game. And we got so good at it that we would play against each other, and you'd play in a board that was a bit of a maze, or it was a maze, and you could fire different options at people. You could fire green shells, red shells, banana peels, and what was some of the other stuff? Well, anyway, the green shell was just like a bullet. It went where you aimed it straight ahead. And if you fired a red shell was like a heat-seeking missile. No matter what, it followed you. And 90-something% of the time, it might get you. However, we learned that you could actually perfectly time the jump. And as it came to hit you, if you were near a wall, as it went to hit you, if you were standing next to a wall, you could perfectly time the jump. And it would go underneath you and hit the wall, and it would disintegrate or whatever. So we got really, really good at this game. We got so good at the game that we could go around a corner, turn backwards, and fire a green shell accurately, and then turn back and make the corner. It was pretty impressive, actually. We got really good. I mean, we had free time. We were teenagers, let's be honest. So, well, the Rainbow Road was a different thing, where it wasn't a competition to like hit each other with a green shell or whatever. This was a race, and you raced, I think it was 5 laps, if I recall, and you did your best time. And you could race against other people, but you could also race against yourself and record it. Well, this one particular board, I decided to get really good at, and if you started the game with perfect timing, you would take off like a jet, like whew. And if you didn't, I think you'd spin out, or you would just take off real slow, whatever it was. Well, I got so good at the timing, I practiced. If I didn't take off perfect every time, I would just restart it. And I got so good that most of the time, I just took off perfect every time, because my goal was to do the best score. So it had to be almost perfect from the get-go. Well, that was my goal. And I got to the point to where I not only went around the whole board every time without ever taking my finger off of the accelerator. So I never hit the brake, never once. I just hit the gas, perfect timing, took off like a jet. And I got so good that there was a button that you could cut corner that would power slide you. And you could also jump. So you could slide into a corner and jump over a ledge. And I got really, really good at that. And after the first lap, obstacles started falling in your way, and it became more difficult. Well, I got so good because, again, had plenty of free time, teenager, decided I was going to get good at this game for whatever reason. I got so good that I dodged every obstacle, and after 5 laps, I never hit one obstacle, never took my finger off the gas for 1 second, had a perfect start, dodged every obstacle, did power slides, and he was even jumping over the corners to cut off part of the distance. Well, once this happens, the game, this is part of what made the game so cool, was that it gave you a character, like a ghost character that took off next to you. So you could actually race yourself, your best time. So after I did it once, I raced myself over and over again until I kept beating my own best time. I got really good. And one day, one of my 2 best friends, Jesse, got a Nintendo Power magazine in the mail. He had the Nintendo Power magazine, and I could not believe it. But in the magazine was this kid, and he was the Rainbow Road champion of the world. And his best time was 5 seconds worse than my 5th place time on my leaderboard. So, and I know competitive classic gaming is gone way up over the years, so it wouldn't surprise me if someone has beaten me. But Jesse will tell you, I am the Rainbow Road champion of the world. So that's basically what this story was. It's just, my buddy Robert always used to say, it's a sorry dog that won't wag his own tail. So I don't know if there's really a story to this, but I thought, you know, I want to tell about my love of video games, where it started, and this beautiful backdrop of the evening is probably gonna, if I put some video up here of the games that I want to talk about, it'll probably look a lot nicer in the evening. But yep, started with the Atari. Oh, I forgot the one part where I went to the boys club for a couple of years, and I would get $1 a day. Back in the day when a video game was a quarter, I got $1 a day. And I decided my strategy back then as a kid was to get really good at one game, so I got more bang for my buck. And that's exactly what I did. And I'd say my first love affair with video games was a game called Dig Dug. And there was a kid named Joe who was the master of the boys club. And in fact, many kids would surround him and pay for him to play all day. Joe is a little mini 8-year-old rock star. And we all wanted to be Joe. And back in the day when you could only put 3 letters into the the scoreboard, it said Joe, 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 Joe. Well, I started to chase Joe's records, and eventually, I mean, that was my game. I played my 4 quarters a day, I got good, and eventually I got up on the leaderboard. And eventually I got farther up on the leaderboard, and eventually I overtook Joe, and eventually I wiped Joe off of the board, and I was Joe. And the kids would show up, or I'm sorry, my dad would show up, and there would be kids, my fan base, my early fan base, and they paid for me to play video games. So I became Joe at some point. So I have a long history and love affair of video games, and I guess that's no real great story here to tell. I wish there was, because that's my point of making these videos. But anyway, I love the nostalgia of it, and thinking back, you know, I'm happy I got to play my games and have fun with my life and everything, and it's been a good life. So anyway, love y'all, take care, and hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.